long time.
Yeah.
You can inhale a little water.
Yep.
And that's bad news. And also, I knew a guy, and he died about maybe a year and a half ago, and he was swimming. A strong swimmer, very athletic, in great shape, about 40 years old. Turns out his heart was a ticking time bomb. And he had a heart attack while swimming, and nobody ever would have expected this to happen, but it happened. I mean, he had a heart attack, and then he drowned. And so it's possible that, it could have been maybe a heart attack.
So that, Joe, is a great prequel to several bits of information that I have about Harold Holt and the conditions that day.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the conditions. Turns out, according to the locals, when the tides in that area turned, it wasn't uncommon to get a undertow in the neighborhood of about 10 knots. A knot is equivalent roughly to about 1 mile an hour. 1 knot, 1 mile an hour, roughly. Nobody get me...
About 1.125 miles an hour.
I knew Joe would do this to me.
Sorry.
So 10 knots comes out to 11.5 miles per hour or 18.5 kilometers per hour.
That's pretty speedy for a current.
It doesn't sound that fast to people who aren't thinking about it, but the normal person walks at about 3 miles per hour. So you triple that. That's a good pace. I wanted to try and come up with something about, if you think about how fast an Olympic runner goes, except Usain Bolt goes at 28 miles per hour, so he kind of blew that out of the water on me.
I mean, okay, but you can't use him as like a...
I was hoping to, except the guy's way too freaking fast.
What's the second Olympic?
How about the 17th fastest man? Yeah. No, but to give you an idea of how bad the water was, I've seen the helicopter footage flying over, and it was really bad, and there was lots of waves crashing around, and those divers that we talked about in the beginning of when they went in to look for the body, they had to wait until the 23rd of December, 6 days after he had disappeared, before it was calm enough for them to comb the bottom, because a lot of people thought, well, Harold Holt's body got swept into the rocks on the bottom and it's probably wedged down there. It took that long, didn't find anything.
Because he'd been abducted. Yeah.
Absolutely.
We talked about the fact that he had the hurt shoulder. Dr. Edwards, that's the guy who he played tennis with, who had supported the fact that, it was still bothering him. And then there's the fact that... he apparently was having some other health issues because he had collapsed earlier that year in Parliament. Though everybody claimed that was from a vitamin deficiency. Though people say, as you alluded to, Joe, with the guy that you knew about, that it was a heart problem. And that may have been why he fell or collapsed. Holt had also been swimming at Cheviot Beach earlier that year and had to be rescued because he had problems swimming in the surf. So there's a whole bunch of things, and it's sad to say, but for me, it adds up to a guy who is past his prime and doesn't want to admit that he isn't as good as he was, and damn it, I can make it through that, and I know this water. And he overestimated what he was capable of.
Well, he also might have been, showing off.
It could have been that, but it actually could have been that, like say, an accident or a heart attack. It could have been that, say, if he hadn't gotten clonked by a log or attacked by a shark or had a heart attack, it could have been that if none of those things had happened, he could have gone out, swam around, come right back.
Could have.
Because he was an experienced guy. He knew how to deal with riptides. There are ways to deal with
very
riptides.
Very simple ways, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's easy.
So,
and so I think he could easily have survived the conditions of the day. I think probably something else happened.
Well, but I also wonder if maybe he if it's one of those situations where he's not feeling all that great once he gets out there, but he decides not to stop because he can do better. Because he had done some rather foolish things in the water. I think it was only 3 years earlier that somebody had introduced him to spearfishing, and he was known for spearfishing and getting a fish pulling it off of the spear, a still bleeding fish, unzipping his wetsuit, shoving that fish into his wetsuit, and then still zipping it up in waters which have great white swimming around. And this isn't just here in the Pacific Northwest, there's a chance there might be a shark. No, there's totally sharks around, and it's a known thing. So he exercises maybe not the best decision making while in the water.
Yeah, he was kind of like the guy who camped out with the bears up in Alaska.
Oh, that
And
you know
kind
what?
of
That
deluding
that guy
himself.
is a whole nother level of stupid.
Oh yeah, definitely a whole nother level, but kind of similar in a sense. Though he thought that he had this special relationship with the sea,
And he had a
like that guy thought he had a special relationship with the bears. It turns out in the end, well, no,
It's not true.
He was a little bit deluded about that. Yeah.
Nature's still going to bite your face off.
Yeah, probably.
Okay. That's all I have for theories. Do you guys have any other pet theories that we haven't talked about, or any?
No.
Let me think. Political competitors? You
No.
know? Okay.
So what you're saying is McMahon swam out and drowned Harold Holt, and then swam away and nobody saw it.
He anticipated Holt would be swimming there that day and the time.
He
And
released his sharks into that bay.
Yeah.
His cyber sharks.
Yeah, his remote-controlled Cybershark drones.
Pretty sure.
Or he could have been just hiding out in the surf with a scuba tank on, ready to pull him under.
Yeah. No, I don't. I think it's likely that he just kind of overestimated his ability and went out and was lost for the ages.
Yeah.
That's my top theory, I would say. Yes?
I kind of like that theory, actually.
I really like the idea that he was part of a drug ring that didn't exist.
Yeah, there's
Because
always
that just makes it
Mr.
even
Asia
more
Senior.
amazing. It was an alien drug ring that was set in the future, but they sent an agent back in time to
That
prevent
was-
Harold
that-
Holt from breaking it up. Wait, that's Terminator,
Yeah.
sort of.
I was going
But
to say,
with
and
coke.
that agent was named Harold Holt.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of absurdity here. Like
Yeah.
he was murdered because he was opposed to the Pine Gap facility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When in fact that was already
Going on.
already going
It was
on
in-
before he was there. And if he was willing to participate in Vietnam, that would mean he and his party were kind of Cold War hawks. And the Pine Gap thing, well, that's Cold War hawk activity. And so I can't imagine why he would have been opposed to that or his party.
So just for folks who don't know, what do you mean by Cold War hawk?
Cold War hawk as in if you were a Cold War hawk and you were in the West, then that meant you were opposed to the Soviets, the Chinese, the whole communism thing.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, we had this thing since the end of World War II up until basically, with some interludes of course, but basically until the collapse of the Soviet Union. Mm-hmm. It was what we called the Cold War.
I get that
And the
part.
Hawks were the ones who were,
Watching?
definitely Hawks were as in a little more warlike, more anti-Soviet, more anti-communist than the Dove.
More aggressive.
Yeah, than the Dove.
Okay.
Hawks and Doves.
I was trying to figure out if it was hawk as in aggressive or hawk as in watching. I was taking
Yeah.
it as more of a satellite because Pine Gap is a satellite station. Okay, I
Yeah.
understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Well, ladies and gents, I think that's all we've got for this one.
Yeah.
If you want to read some of the research that we have done, I will definitely make the National Archive data available because thank you again to those folks. That will be on our website. That website is thinkingsidewayspodcast.com. On that website, like I said, we're going to have those links. You can listen to any episode there, download or stream. There will be merch available on the website on the right-hand side for both Zazzle and Redbubble. So shirts and coffee mugs and stickers and all kinds of fun stuff. We, based on what Devin is currently wearing, obviously we need to make a toque. Wait, not a toque. That's just a regular stocking cap.
It's a beanie.
It's a beanie. We need to make a beanie.
What?
Yeah, it's a cool beanie.
You're insulting my hat?
No.
No.
You need a Thinking Sideways hat, obviously enough. Because you're wearing the boring, plain black one.
That's true. Although I do
we're
have to
gonna-
admit, I don't own anything that's Thinking Sideways branded. So
Damn,
Actually,
we
I don't
just
either.
finished our Christmas exchange.
I know.
Okay. All right. Well, what else can we give you? Well, we are available on iTunes, and I know a lot of people get their podcast through iTunes, and if you do, please do take the time to leave a comment and a rating. We are also available on a lot of the streaming sources. So I know it's Google Play and Stitcher and a whole other
Tons.
host of them out there. We are also going to be on the social media. So we have the Facebook page and the Facebook group, which are very busy and lots of good stuff there. We are on Twitter, where we're putting out lots of fun stuff. On Twitter, we're Thinking Sideways without the G in the middle. We are on Reddit. Our subreddit is Thinking Sideways.
Oh.
And, of course, you can always go ahead and get a hold of us. If you want to get a hold of us via email, that would be thinkingsidewayspodcast@gmail.com, where you can send in story suggestions, concerns, general accolades, whatever you want to share. We will totally, totally happily chat with you about any of that. That having been said, I've really got nothing else to float here. So
I think we have plumbed the depths of the mystery.
I don't have anything for this. I'm sorry.
Got
all right.
nothing. Yeah.
Well then, ladies and gentlemen, we will
drowned.
talk to you next week.
Bye, guys.
Ta-ta.
This episode of Thinking Sideways is not brought to you by nihilism. Or not. Or it is. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Instead, it's brought to you by your local animal shelter. Do you want to get a furry, feathered, or scaly friend? Probably all three put together. Yeah, you do. Go to your local animal shelter before the pet store, because pet stores are super lame. There's so many four-legged friends out there and two-legged friends out there that just want to find a good home, and they want to find their good home with you. Already have your furry friend and you want to help out? Donate to your local animal rescue or shelter organization. It doesn't have to be money. You can always volunteer. So get out there and give some love to some animals that need some love or whatever.
Thinking Sideways. Hey there, welcome to another episode of Thinking Sideways. I'm Joe, joined as always by
Devin?
and
Steve.
And again, well, surprise, surprise, we got a mystery to talk about. This week we're going to talk about the disappearance of Jim Gray, who you've all heard of, I'm sure.
Yeah, very
exactly.
famous disappearance.
He's impacted
Yeah.
all of your worlds.
Yeah.
He actually has had an impact, even if I have not heard of him. He's very well known in the tech world, though. He disappeared almost 10 years ago. But first of all, I want to thank Shimmy, who suggested this like a couple of years ago. But back to Jim Gray, he was a big pioneer in the modern tech industry. He worked at Bell Labs, IBM, DEC, Microsoft, God knows how many companies he worked for. Very well-known guy, highly regarded. And he played a big part in developing technologies that we all use today.
Yep.
Believe it or not, he did.
Like the iPhone,
Yeah.
right?
No.
Oh.
Not directly. I mean probably
No.
somewhere, somehow, he,
You could connect him to it, but
he probably.
Probably
yeah.
not.
7 degrees of Jim Gray.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much, yeah. Jim was a sailor, had a 40-foot sailboat. He boarded his sailboat the morning of January 28th, 2007, which was a Sunday. Sailed out alone to the Golden Gate in San Francisco into the ocean. It was supposed to be a day trip to the Farallon Islands, which are 27 miles west of San Francisco. It was a nice day, calm conditions, sunny. But still, Jim never made it back. He vanished without a trace, which is kind of odd. He didn't send a distress signal. No wreckage or flotsam from his boat was ever found. Like I said, he vanished without
Without a trace.
He totally did.
San Francisco Triangle.
Yeah, probably. I'd say it's kind of creepy, but Halloween month is over, so creepy is out, strange is in.
Yeah.
So that's what it is, strange. Mysterious.
Weird.
It's
Yeah.
Strange November.
Yeah,
yeah.
kind of head scratch in November. Okay. But
That's dandruff.
Oh, is that what it is? Dandruff, that's scabies,
That's-
yeah.
that's the cold
headline. Thought it was puzzlement. No, it's just scabies.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, back to the story.
Oh, yeah, back
That
to our
went
story.
sideways way too fast.
Yeah, I know. Always straight to the bottom. But when word got out that Jim Gray had disappeared, a lot of people in the tech world took notice. A lot of big names that you probably heard of, like Bill Gates, Sergey Brin from Google, Larry Ellison from Oracle, and the list goes on. What's his name from Amazon?
Yeah.
Name escape. Anyway, they all wanted to help in any way they could, and they all did. Search for Jim Gray was about as comprehensive as any search ever done for anybody, I think. You guys read all that stuff that I sent you about.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was big time.
Yeah.
Heavy duty search.
They were messing around.
Bigly.
Thousands of people were involved in this in the end. Yeah. But still, they didn't find him or a trace of him. So what happened? Did he skip out and everything, sail to Ensenada, start a new life? Did the Illuminati get him?
Yes.
Did the Kraken get him?
Yes.
Yeah, all
No, the
those
Kraken
things.
usually leaves wreckage of some kind.
Yeah. So it wasn't the Kraken.
Probably not.
The Krakenati, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
The naughty Kraken. Yeah. Of course, the Kraken's naughty. That's kind of repetitious. Yeah. Okay.
So what's the deal here? I mean,
Let's go back to square one.
Okay.
So just a little bio stuff on Jim, and I'm not going to go back to the day he was born. He was 63 when he disappeared. On his second marriage, his second wife was Donna. They had about 20 years of experience sailing their boat, and their boat liked to single hand occasionally.
and sorry, you may not know this off the top of your head. It was a longer marriage. It was his second wife, but they were married for
They were,
a lot.
yeah, they were married for quite a while. I don't remember exactly.
I think
how
they met
long.
in '94. I
Something
want
like
to
that.
say.
Yeah.
And then they married just a couple of. No, they got married really quick because he proposed on their third date. I remember. Because they were both, at this point they
Older,
were.
yeah.
God, they would have both been about 50 at that
Yeah.
point, so there's no reason to muck about.
But they were married for about 10 years. It wasn't as though
Yeah. It's
2
not-
years in, suddenly he disappears.
No, it's
okay.
like they got married and they went on their honeymoon in Australia, and next thing you know, one of them's dead.
Yeah,
Well, you go
not like that.
figure.
Okay,
Yeah, no,
gotcha.
not like that at all. They were together for a while.
I don't know. It doesn't probably matter. I just wonder with these
To
things.
some people it
sometimes.
matters, but I don't
Yeah.
think it does.
Their boat. Their boat, you probably want to know this, was a CNC 40, which is a 40-foot sloop manufactured in Canada.
What's a
Originally-
sloop?
A sloop. Sloop is a single the most common rig that you see. It's a single-masted sailboat.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and then the mast is stepped kind of forward, and then actually theirs might have been a cutter because the cutter is that looks just like a sloop, but the mast is stepped a little further back, and it's got two head sails instead of one.
Okay.
So I don't know.
But it's
Could have
just
been a
like
cutter.
when you
But
think,
it's a single
like when a
masted
kid
sailboat.
draws a sailboat, this is what they're drawing.
Yeah,
Pretty much.
basically,
Okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah, one mast.
Sorry,
two
we don't all
sails.
know boaty terms like you do.
Oh, that's a
so-
good point. Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. As I mentioned, Jim Gray was in the tech business. At the time he disappeared, he was working for Microsoft. He lived in a house on Telegraph Hill in San Francisco.
It's a really tough life.
Yeah.
I know, poor guy.
Yeah, jeez.
Yeah, by the way, they weren't
Definitely
rent-
the sort of thing you'd want to run away from.
Yeah, oh, exactly. They weren't renting, by the way. They owned
Purchased.
the house.
I'm sure they did, yeah.
they did. Which, if you know San Francisco neighborhoods, that's a spendy little neighborhood.
Even in 90 or
2007.
yeah,
Oh yeah,
2007.
definitely. Yeah, no, I did just for fun. I went out on Zillow, looked at listings on Telegraph Hill,
do that.
and I found it.
How does that make you feel?
I found
So good.
I found one vacant lot. It was about 1,500 square feet for only $200,000.
But it was a vacant lot.
Well, it was a vacant lot, but they had some pictures of it, and it was
Yeah.
on a hillside about literally this steep.
About a
About
45-degree
45
angle
no,
or more.
much steeper
90.
than 45 degrees.
Almost
yeah.
90.
In other words, yeah. And so that was the cheapest thing
Stilt
available on
house.
Telegraph
Yeah.
Hill.
That's
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. Spendy.
Well, I mean, I guess
Yeah.
if you have people like literally Bill Gates being concerned personally for your well-being, you're probably doing
You're an
okay.
influential guy.
Probably influential, and they're going to pay you some good money. Yeah. And they had, as I said, a 40-foot sailboat. Now, again, tough life, which they kept moored in a marina in what's called Gas House Cove in San Francisco Bay. It's kind of just west, several blocks of Ghirardelli Square.
Oh yeah,
And I'm sure it costs you a boatload of bucks to keep your boat there.
boatload of bucks. What was the
And-
boat called?
Tenacious. That's what I was
Tenacious.
like. It's a pretty clever name.
Yeah.
Tenacious, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm sure there was a little wordplay involved in there too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like Jim Gray's mother had died a few months before. That was October 2006. And on Sunday, January 28, 2007, he was planning to sail to the Farallon Islands to scatter her ashes. Apparently that was her wishes, was to have her ashes scattered there. Kind of ironic that he disappears carrying out her last wishes, It's kind of, she probably would have wished for something different if she had known. But, hindsight 2020 and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
He spent the previous night on the boat so he can get an early start. 7 a.m. He was ready to go. He called Donna at 7:01 a.m. She was in Wisconsin at that time, vacationing with some friends.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
like an annual thing she
I mean,
did.
yeah, she had some buddies, and they always
Sure.
took off. And
Going to
on it.
Wisconsin.
Going to Wisconsin. to
Scenic
go
Wisconsin.
Ski and ice fish and drink beer
Sure.
and, I don't know, tip cows or whatever you
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
Cheese,
And-
lots of cheese.
Yeah, oh yeah, eat cheese. But told her that he was going to go out scatter Mom's ashes and that he was not going to disappear and turn up in Baja under a new name. No, not at all. So he cast off sometime between then and about 7:15. and headed out. From the marina, it's about 2.5 miles west to the Golden Gate Bridge. And then from there, it's about 2.5 more till you get to the open ocean. You know, I know it seems like it's like the ocean's right there, but actually, no, it's not at all. It's a little ways away.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's a big river.
Yeah, well, it's a big inlet. Yeah, river, harbor, whatever you call it. But yeah, from there, like I said, about another 25 miles maybe to southeast Farallon Island, which is the largest of the chain. There's several in the chain.
Mm-hmm.
And southeast is the big one, and it's the only one that has people on it. And those people are basically government employees who run sort of a...
But it's big enough for people to live on?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's not like there's an economy. There's just,
Sure.
They're scientists who are
Right.
basically gathering wildlife information and stuff like that.
But it's not
Right.
just like, a rock. Like, it's not like the islands we have in the middle of our river.
No.
Right.
No, it's bigger than that. Yeah. It's big enough to you could build a lighthouse on it and have your
It's bigger than a bread box.
Disappear. Yeah, it's
It
that
wouldn't
big.
fit in a bread box.
No, it's
Gotcha.
big. Actually, I think it does have a lighthouse on it. Come to think of it.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, that's southeast Farallon Island. So Jim calls Donnie again about 10:30, and the call was relayed to a singular cell tower in Daly City, which is south of San Francisco. I know you-
Singular as in like AT&T singular.
The-
exactly.
Not like singular like
as in
one.
one.
The cell carrier.
Yeah. Is that singular or singular?
Singular.
Singular? Okay. That would have been due east of his position, therefore the closest one, because he was way out to sea.
And Daly City's
Daly
City.
Daly City, sorry.
Yeah.
It's on mainland.
Yeah. So it's just south and on the west side of the peninsula, kind of westish, not real west, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and he was almost out of cell range, and he just called to say the usual, hey, I'm scattering mom's ashes. And by the way, if I don't come back, it's because I'm in Davy Jones' locker, not in a brothel in Ensenada. No, not at all. And also, by the way, I'm just kidding. He called to just say the weather was really good, and
probably just to check in.
just to
Say
check
like, this
in.
is my progress. Everything's going well.
Yeah, he said I'm basically out, kind of past the last buoy marker for the channel. And there's a little ambiguity there because apparently it's a fairly complicated situation. There's 3 channels that come together from the ocean, north, south, and west, all come together into one 9-mile channel that goes all the way to the Golden Gate Bridge. Mm-hmm. And so all the big incoming ships have to follow that incoming channel. So there's all kinds of buoy markers out there. So there's a little ambiguity about exactly which buoy marker he was talking about.
Yeah,
but
I can see that.
Yeah, there were people that went back and tried to reassemble it, like really, really intense timeline that, noted all of his movements, and they could never totally resolve exactly where he was. But between him saying that and between the cell phone pinging that tower in Daly City, it does appear that he really was on the boat. It's not like he said he was getting on the boat and then just nipped out and jumped on a bus and left town and
then called when he was in Daly City.
Yeah, and scuttled the boat in the middle of San Francisco Bay, swam ashore, and then just left town. No.
I mean, I guess I can see both ways why it's worth discussing this second call, because he just called her at 7 to basically say, hey, it's looking like a nice day. This is what I'm going to do. Love you, whatever. And I don't know their relationship, so I don't know if they were the kind of people. I have some friends who are on the phone with their husbands, every 3 hours.
Yeah.
They just they call at lunch, they call at their break, they talk on their phone all the time, which seems excessive to me.
Yeah, those people are annoying.
But I mean, that's how some people are. So if they were that kind of couple, it does make sense that he would call her again and say hey, I'm leaving cell phone range.
I don't know if they were totally that kind of couple, but I think they were on great terms. I think they really cared for each other, and so not at all surprising. And by the way, he was on a sailboat in the middle of nowhere, out in the ocean with not a whole lot to do. So it's like, hey, why don't I make some phone calls?
Right.
I can see that too.
I guess what I would say is if it were, I know my fiance well enough to know that if this were us, he would have called me at 7 and said, okay, I'm going to do this today, so I'm going to be out of cell phone range the entire day, and would have expected me to just wait until he called me when he got back to land at the end of the day and just assume everything is fine, right? And so there are people like that too. So, but on the other hand, I can also see how
I don't think
people might think, well, this is
unusual.
the last time he ever called his wife. He was trying to say goodbye to her.
But it wasn't the last phone call he made.
No.
That's the important point.
It's not, but it is also, I guess I can see why it's worth discussing either way.
Yeah, no, I mean, it could be read that way, although it didn't say anything that really stood out in her mind later. It didn't say anything like, honey, I love you so much. I mean, maybe he did, but essentially it was just like, hey, weather's great, and then she says, you wearing your harness? Because, when you're single-handed, you're supposed to wear a harness. So,
So you don't fall off
so
the
you
boat.
don't fall overboard. And he said he was wearing his harness. One other thing that may or may not be relevant at all is she said she didn't hear any engine noises, so he was just under sail, not running the diesel. They have a diesel motor on these things. But that's about it for that phone call. And then he also called his daughter at 10:38. That was the last phone call. She had recently had a son. That would be Jim's grandson. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and maybe that's why she didn't pick up the phone, but he did leave her a voicemail saying kind of the same thing, weather's good, going to go scatter grandma's ashes, there's dolphins all around me, yada,
It's
yada,
beautiful.
yada.
Everything's the worst.
Beautiful out here, and on and on. And by the way, goodbye forever, I love you. No, just kidding. He didn't say it. So you could read that way. He's saying goodbye to the most important people in his life. He's calling them on the phone. He's going to go kill himself.
You could.
Yeah, maybe. I don't.
Or you could, again, like you said, you could read it as he was bored in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah, I thought, what the hell? I'm about to run. I want to make a couple of phone calls. Yeah, why not?
Again, it comes down to I guess those different personality types where I would definitely be that kind of person who would just be like, I am bored as heck. I gotta call some people. I gotta talk to some people. I do not like being alone. I'm gonna just make all these phone calls and talk to all these people.
I'd have turned off my cell phone at 7:15.
Yeah, I mean, you would have, because I know you well enough to know. You would have placed that last call and turned it off and been like, "This is amazing. This ocean is beautiful.
Nobody's
I love
bugging
this.
me."
It's the best." So I guess part of it comes down to personality types.
Well, pretty much, yeah.
So it's hard to read into this without knowing him.
Yeah, it is hard to say if that means anything. I don't think it does, but we'll see. We'll talk about that in theories. Generally, I mean, obviously, when people disappear, suicide is always considered to be a possibility.
Of course.
Yeah.
Suicide is considered in almost any case.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, I know. Well, anyway, so we'll talk about that more in the suicide.
Sorry, I'm just trying to
thing.
set the framework.
Oh, no, that's totally cool. So back to Jim and his little sailing adventure. Apparently the last contact with the cell tower was at 11:50 a.m. Jim's boat cruised out of cell phone range, and he was on his own.
And that's expected, right?
Yeah,
That's about the expected timeline.
Yeah, and
Okay.
that's not unusual at all. Presumably there was shipping traffic because, as I said, 3 sea lanes come together, a lot, big port, a lot of traffic. So there were ships out there. I have no doubt about it. I'm sure they weren't whirling around like snowflakes or anything like that, but there were some out
It's
there.
an active harbor.
It is.
But he would be
attention.
used to that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he sailed out there many times. But that's that. As far as Jim's course after that, it's pretty much unknown. It's assumed that he made it actually out to the island because a biologist named Brett Hartle was living and working on Southeast Farallon Island at the time, and he reported, this was after his disappearance hit the news, and afterwards he thought about it and said, I think I saw his boat. He said he'd seen a boat that might have been Jim's. So he said he'd seen it was either a red or a brown hull. It was hard to tell because it was like over a mile away, so I bet it was really hard to tell.
Jim Gray's boat had a red hull.
Had a red hull with kind of a white racing stripe
Pinstripe
on the
on it,
side of
kinda,
it.
yeah.
Kind of thing. And depending on the photos, some photos it looks kind of like really bright red. Other photos it looks kind of more ketchupy colored.
Yeah,
But
you
it's
look
hard
like
to
that
say.
in certain photos too. So
I know,
It
I
really
know.
just depends on
It's
the photo.
true, yeah.
Hard to say, but so it either had a red or a brown hull. It was between Southeast Farallon Island and the middle Farallon Island, which is 2 miles northwest. He also said he wasn't sure what direction it was going in. Again, he didn't have
Boat on the water,
Yeah.
he sees them all the time.
exactly, and so he saw this boat out there. So he wasn't sure what direction it was going in. He was thinking maybe it was going west or maybe north. He didn't have binoculars. He didn't actually spend a lot of time looking at it, and he also, by the way, wasn't wearing a watch. Didn't notice the time. He said it could have been anywhere between noon and 3 p.m. So he didn't know. And after he thought about it, and again, could be his memory playing tricks too, because I know my memory messes with me sometimes.
Yeah.
Thought about it hard, and you remember that the boat's main sail was up and the jib was furled.
And the jib is
The jib is the sail in the front. So there's the main sail, the one on the back, and then
the little triangular
and the
one.
jib is a small triangular one up in the front. When they say furled, that means it's rolled up, folded up, whatever.
And what
Furled,
is that? What does that mean?
That means it's not up. It's not.
No, I'm sorry, but
Why?
why would you have the jib furled?
One reason I could think of is if you're getting enough wind anyway, and you're single-handed, single-handing the boat. You tried to say it is less work. Because what you got to do,
dealing with one sail.
yeah, when you go to tack, and say you're heading 45 degrees off the wind, when you go to tack, you bring it around, and all you got to do is just remember to duck when the main boom comes swinging back across you, and it will, and that's it. Whereas if you have a jib up, then what that means, what you got to do is when you tack, you got to get up there, let the rope loose, and actually probably could do all this from the cockpit, because I think this boat was set up for single-handed sailing.
I would
But,
assume.
yeah, you have to let the
It was
one
a racing boat, yeah.
Yeah, so you got to let the one rope loose on the one side, and then when the jib comes around to the other side, you got to take it back in and wind it up on the winch and tighten it and everything. So if you're feeling a little lazy, then with the mainsail, again, all you got to do is just let that boom go boom one
Gotcha.
side and over to the other, and that's it.
Okay. And
Less
so
work.
you would do that if you were like, if it were leisure and you were getting enough wind and you weren't in a hurry. And
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And if you didn't have any hands, and of course, you know,
Sure.
if you're out there with some people and you're all kind of bored, then actually that kind of stuff can be kind of fun.
Yeah.
It keeps you occupied, but apparently he wasn't really into it that day.
Okay.
But that's okay. He wasn't in a
If
huge
that was
hurry.
him.
If that was even him, which we don't really know, do we?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But anyway, so Brett remembered, he thought at least, that the mainsail was up and the jib was furled. Therefore, he decided then he must have seen the boat's starboard side. And that means that the boat must have been moving north when he saw it. So therefore, okay, it maybe had rounded Southeast Farallon Island, was heading between the two and headed north. But again, you know, I'm not sure I trust this. Not saying I don't trust Brett, but memory's a funny thing. You know?
It also could have totally been a different boat.
It could have been a different boat, and it was over a mile away.
Yeah.
So all these factors make me question this one just a little bit. But
Yeah.
sounds like it probably was his boat.
But
I don't
he's
know.
not the only person who came forward saying he thought he might have seen the boat.
And there were other
Yeah.
boats seen that day, by the way. This
Right.
was just the only red
Right.
one. There was another. They found a sailor that was on a whale watching boat in the area. Saw 3 sailboats that day, 2 white ones and 1 red. So the red one might have been Jim.
But also might not
Which
have
would have
been.
put it in a different place.
But it's not 100% certain. But anyway, but those probably were the last sightings of it. Donna reported Jim missing to the Coast Guard that night about 8:30 or so when he didn't come back. Again, she's in Wisconsin, but she was expecting him to call.
Right.
So she calls the marina. The harbor master checks the berth. The sailboat ain't back. So she calls the Coast Guard and reports him missing. They started their search within a few hours. They sent a couple of boats out. Eventually, a helicopter and a C-130 plane took off around midnight, 1 a.m., and they started scouring the area between the Farallon Islands and the Golden Gate. And, of course, they had, radar and stuff like that and infrared. So, there really was a purpose to going out and buzzing around.
Right.
at night
In the
looking.
dark, you use things beside your eyeballs.
Yeah, you kind of have
Yeah.
to. Yeah. But they were out there looking, and, of course, they didn't find anything. They kept adding resources to the search. They searched for about 5 days. And,
Wow.
Yeah, and they kept adding more resources to it. Eventually, they scoured the California coast from the Oregon border south to about Santa Barbara, which is quite a long stretch
Pretty
of coastline.
significant, yeah.
Yeah, and boaters were alerted to look for wreckage, and their C-130 planes flew grid patterns like further and further out from shore. And I've got a map here of some of the grids that they did. You guys might have seen this one. These are some of the grid searches that they did.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you guys can see this. You can't see it out there, but
But you can hear it.
you can hear it. You can totally hear it. But they flew a lot of grid patterns, and they pretty comprehensively, covered the area. Didn't find anything.
Which is that? I mean, that seems unusual.
To not find
Depending
anything.
on the
Not like
scenario.
anything.
Yeah, exactly. Because if the boat sank,
There's
usually-
floaty bits.
Yeah, there's floaty bits. Exactly.
Everything on a boat is designed to float.
Yeah.
I know. There's what they call flotsam. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or that's which is sailorese for floaty bits.
Yeah.
And there should have been at least a couple of boat cushions or something.
Yeah.
And when they were out there, they spotted other wreckage that was from other boats or other ships. They found other stuff.
Yeah.
Just nothing from his boat.
Which is okay.
Nothing at all. So they were able to find small objects floating in
Right.
the ocean.
Okay.
But nothing from his boat at all, which was a little weird.
Yeah.
I think they covered something like 40,000 square miles of ocean.
Wow.
Yeah, quite a bit. And meantime, Jim Gray's high-tech friends have heard about all this. They're starting to get involved, and I'm going to really shorten this down quite a bit. Microsoft provided pretty much unlimited funding for the private searches that they did. And they did a lot of stuff, including flying over with airplanes and helicopters and stuff. And eventually, I think his wife